I started training with my dad really as soon as I could walk. I mean, my dad was a really diligent trainer, and he always had people over at the house practicing, friends and students, and that was just how we played at my house, you know? In fact, I remember when I was a little kid, a lot of my friends didn't want to come over to the house because there were always these men out in the backyard screaming and breaking things, you know?
Lee was born on February the 1st, 1965 in Oakland, California, the son of martial artist and actor Bruce Lee and Linda Emery. The family moved to Los Angeles, California when he was 3 months old. The family lived in Hong Kong from 1971 to 1973, after which his mother moved back to the United States following the death of his father, Bruce Lee. He attended high school at Chadwick School, but was asked to leave for insubordination, more specifically, driving down the school's hill backwards. He briefly attended Bishop Montgomery High School, which is located in Torrance, from 1979 to 1980. He received his GED, General Educational Development, in 1983 at the age of 18, and then went to Emerson College in Boston, Massachusetts, where he majored in theater. After 1 year, Lee moved to New York City, where he took acting lessons at the famed Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute, and was part of the American New Theater group founded by his friend John Lee Hancock. The bulk of Lee's martial arts instruction came from his father's top students and best friends, Dan Inosanto and Richard Bastillo. Lee returned to Los Angeles in 1985, where he worked for Rudy Morgan Productions as a scriptreader, doing an uncredited cameo in the action film Crime Killer. He was asked to audition for a role by casting director Lynn Stallmaster and got his first credited acting role in Kung Fu, the movie, a feature-length television movie which was a follow-up to the 1970s television series Kung Fu. The film aired on ABC on February 1st, 1986, which was also Lee's 21st birthday. Lee got his first leading film role later that year in the Hong Kong action crime thriller Legacy of Rage, in which he starred alongside Michael Wong, Regina Kent, and Mang Hoi. It also featured a cameo appearance by Bolo Yeung, who appeared in his father's film Enter the Dragon. Made in Cantonese and directed by Ronnie Yu, it was the only film Lee made in Hong Kong. He was also nominated for a Hong Kong Film Award for Best New Performer in this role. In 1987, Lee starred in the unsold television pilot Kung Fu: The Next Generation, which aired on CBS Summer Playhouse and was another follow-up to the Kung Fu TV series. In 1988, Lee made a guest appearance alongside Pat Morita in an episode of the short-lived American television series O'Hara, playing a villainous character named Kenjai. In the summer of 1988, Lee also started filming his first English B-grade action film, Laser Mission. It was filmed cheaply in South Africa and was eventually released on the European market in 1990. In 1991, he starred opposite Dolph Lundgren in the buddy cop action film Showdown in Little Tokyo. This was marked as his first studio film and American film debut. Lee signed a multi-picture deal with 20th Century Fox in 1991. He had his first starring role in the action thriller Rapid Fire in 1992 and was scheduled to do 2 more films for them. In August of that year, Bruce Lee biographer John Little asked Brandon Lee what his philosophy in life was, and he replied, "Eat or die." Brandon later spoke of the martial arts and self-knowledge. In 1990, Lee met Eliza Hutton at director Rennie Harlin's office, located at the headquarters of 20th Century Fox. Hutton was working as a personal assistant to Harlan and later became a story editor for Stillwater Productions in 1991. Lee and Hutton moved in together in early 1991 and became engaged in October of 1992. Brandon and Eliza had planned to start a family immediately after they were married. They were due to be married in Ensenada, Mexico on April 17, 1993, a week after Lee was to complete filming on The Crow. At the time of Lee's death, Hutton was working as a casting assistant and was on the set of The Crow so much that she was later credited with being Lee's on-set assistant. After his death, Hutton petitioned to have gun safety regulations tightened on film sets. The Crow is dedicated to the couple. Lee died of a gunshot wound on March 31st, 1993, at the filming studio in Wilmington, North Carolina, at the age of 28, after an accidental shooting on the set of The Crow. In the scene in which Lee was accidentally shot, Lee's character walks into his apartment and discovers his fiancée being beaten by thugs. Actor Michael Massey's character fires a .44 Magnum revolver at Lee as he walks into the room. A previous scene using the same gun had called for inert dummy cartridges fitted with bullets, but no powder or percussion primer, to be loaded in the revolver for a close-up scene. For film scenes that utilize a revolver where the bullets are visible from the front and do not require the gun to actually be fired, dummy cartridges provide the realistic appearance of actual rounds. Instead of purchasing commercial dummy cartridges, the film's prop crew created their own by pulling the bullets from live rounds, dumping the powder charge, then reinserting the bullets. However, they unknowingly or unintentionally left the live percussion primer in place at the rear of the cartridge. At some point during filming, the revolver was apparently discharged with one of these improperly deactivated cartridges in the chamber, setting off the primer with enough force to drive the bullet part way into the barrel, where it became stuck, a condition known as a squib load. The prop crew either failed to notice this or failed to recognize the significance of this issue. In the fatal scene, which called for the revolver to be fired at Lee from a distance of 3.6 to 4.5 meters or 12 to 15 feet away, the dummy cartridges were exchanged with blank rounds, which feature a live powder charge and primer, but no bullet, thus allowing the gun to be fired without the risk of an actual projectile. But since the bullet from the dummy round was already trapped in the barrel, this caused the .44 Magnum bullet to be fired out of the barrel with virtually the same force as if the gun had been loaded with a live round, and had struck Lee in the abdomen, mortally wounding him.
That bullet being lodged in the barrel and that full load blank, that was the equivalent of a live .44 round.
And it was projected out of the gun and into Brandon Lee.
North Carolina officials concluded that the film company's biggest failures were not having a gun expert on the set and taking shortcuts to save time and money. However, the chain of negligence involved so many people that convicting any one of them was unlikely. No criminal charges were ever filed. In the end, it seems that Brandon Lee was truly a victim of circumstance. Or was he, as some claim, the final casualty of the family curse?
He was rushed to the new Hanover Regional Medical Center in Wilmington, North Carolina, where he underwent 6 hours of surgery. However, attempts to save him were unsuccessful, and Lee was pronounced dead at 1:03 p.m., March 31st, 1993, at the age of 28. The shooting was ruled an accident. The video footage was used as evidence in the investigation, then later destroyed as part of the lawsuit settlement. Lee's body was flown to Jacksonville, North Carolina, where an autopsy was performed. He was then flown to Seattle, Washington, where he was buried next to his father at the Lakeview Cemetery, in a plot that Linda Lee Cadwell had originally reserved for herself. A private funeral took place in Seattle on April 3, 1993. Only close family and friends were permitted to attend, including Lee's immediate family, as well as fiancée Eliza Hutton's parents and younger sister, who flew in from Missouri. The following day, 250 of Lee's family, friends, and business associates attended a memorial service in Los Angeles, held at the house of actress Polly Bergen. The gravestone, designed by sculptor Kirk McLean, is a tribute to Lee and Hutton. Its 2 twisting rectangles of charcoal granite join at the bottom and pull apart at the top. It represents Eliza and Brandon, the 2 of them, and how the tragedy of his death separated their mortal life together, said his mother, Linda Lee Cadwell, who described her son, like his father before him, as a poetic, romantic person. After Lee's death, his fiancée Eliza Hutton and his mother supported director Alex Proyas' decision to complete The Crow. At the time of Lee's death, only 8 days were left before completion of the movie. A majority of the film had already been completed, with Lee and only a few scenes remained to be done. To complete the film, stunt double Chad Stileski, who was a friend of Lee's at Inosanto Academy, served as a stand-in. Special effects were used to give him Lee's face. The Crow was released in May 1994 and became a box office hit, grossing over $50 million in the US and retaining a loyal cult following many years after its release. Lee had agreed on 2 more sequels of The Crow if the film did well. Lee's portrayal of Eric Draven posthumously earned him an MTV Movie Award nomination for Best Male Performance and a Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Leading Actor. At the time of his death, his father's biopic, Dragon: The Bruce Lee Story, was ready for release. The film was released 2 months after Lee's death, with a dedication to his memory in the end credits. 7 years after Lee's death, a direct-to-video Swedish film titled Sex, Lies, and Video Violence was released, in which Lee had a very brief cameo appearance. Lee had filmed his cameo appearance in 1992, at the time he was promoting Rapid Fire in Sweden, but the film was delayed for 7 years before finally being released in 2000. It too was dedicated to Lee during the end credits.
Because we do not know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. And yet everything happens only a certain number of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood? An afternoon that is so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it. Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20, and yet it all seems limitless.